Hey guys. How are you? How have you been? It's been a while since I have filmed anything. And I'm not gonna bore you with reasons why. I think it's pretty obvious. Anybody that has difficulty with mental health, sometimes you feel like you couldn't possibly have anything to add to the conversation, you know? Obviously, on, like, as far as surface level things go, there are some things that have changed. I'm in a different location. I have moved. We don't live in the trailer anymore. We don't live in North Dakota anymore. We are now in Colorado. But none of that really matters. There's one big... I mean, a lot of things, honestly, are the same. I still am struggling with a lot of the same feelings and a lot of the same... you know, it's a lot of the same. That's kind of the way it goes, is a lot of times it feels like a couple steps forward and then a couple steps back. And so, while I wish I had, I guess, more inspiring updates for you, I don't. A lot of it is pretty much the same kind of stuff that I'm struggling with. But one big change for me has been discovering avoidant personality disorder. Now, I really want to talk about it because while having an accurate diagnosis really, when it comes to mental health issues and personality disorders specifically, it only does so much. It's not like you get, you know, like a physical health diagnosis and then all of a sudden you know exactly what to do to treat it. Personality disorders are incredibly pervasive and it's difficult. It definitely isn't just like, oh, you figure out you have it and then you can fix it. But finding this personality disorder, finding this diagnosis, and then learning about it and realizing that there are a number of other people in the world that struggle with the exact same issues that I have. It's comforting, and also it helps me understand myself better, which is, I guess, the first step to, you know, trying to improve. But the reason that I really, really want to talk about avoidant personality disorder specifically in this video is because, of course, that's now become a part of me that is, you know, in my previous videos I was talking about my depression and my anxiety and my body image and all of these things sort of independently. I was considering bipolar disorder, I've considered autism, I've considered ADHD. Like, I really went through a lot of psychology. So, like, I've done a lot of research into a lot of different things because I really wanted to understand myself and I wanted to get to the root of what was going on with me so that I could, you know, try to figure out how to grow and become better. But the thing about avoidant personality disorder that I found so shocking was that it took me so long to even, like, come across it. I had never heard of it before, and it's just not talked about. And when I when I did finally find it and I read the list of like symptom criteria, I was blown away at how spot on they were to me in my life. And not just me in my life now, but me in my life for as long as I can remember, literally since I was a child. And I feel like there are a handful of personality disorders, specifically cluster B personality disorders, that are really well known, really talked about. Antisocial personality disorder, people know a lot about that. Narcissistic personality disorder, you know, borderline personality disorder. These are talked about, and people are aware of how serious they can be. They're aware of how much they can affect somebody's life, right? But nobody knows about avoidant personality disorder. Nobody understands it. The name is kind of misleading, sort of. And I think people who are aware of it would consider it like one of the easier or like less severe personality disorders. But for me, I don't want to say it's ruined my life, because I'm hoping to, you know, be able to live a happy, successful life with this disorder, but it has really, really impacted my life in negative ways, and it's really, really kept me from being my best self. Like, it's been really debilitating for me. So I want to, number one, just sort of spread awareness in my little tiny corner of the internet. Even if this can help one person, like, that's enough. And that's what I said about my other videos. And, you know, I feel grateful that I've had at least a couple comments of people that those videos have resonated with. And genuinely, if only 5 people see this video, and if it only helps one, then it'll be worth it for me to make this. So I wanna spread awareness of the disorder, because I'm sure so many more people have this than realize. And I also want to stress how difficult it can be and how much it can affect your life. I just want to tell my story with it, I guess, and how much it's affected my life, and maybe that will help someone. So let me pull up the symptom criteria. Okay, so I'm just gonna read the 5 symptom, or the symptom criteria from the DSM-5. There's 7, I believe. You need to have 4 or more to be diagnosed, but I have every single one. So I'm just gonna read all of them and tell you my personal experience with it and how it's affected my life. So the first one is: avoids occupational activities that involve significant interpersonal contact because of fears of criticism, disapproval, or rejection. So, you know, I've spoken in my other videos about my, like, social anxiety, I think, and my struggles with, I've really, really struggled in job settings, because I am so afraid of humiliating myself, of doing something incorrectly, of getting in trouble for doing something wrong, and just for, like, the perception of, you know, my boss or my coworkers, like, talking bad about me behind my back. Like, I just have so much anxiety in a workplace setting that not only have I not worked for much of the last 2.5 years because of that, but even when I was working before then, I had a pattern of calling in sick from work if I was nervous about something that day, and then the fear of getting in trouble for calling in sick would snowball, and I would start missing more days. My anxiety would become overwhelming until I would quit and leave the job, because I would wake up before work and just be so overwhelmed with panic and dread that I felt like I would rather die than go. So that's been something that I've struggled with for as long as I can remember. The intense fear of criticism, rejection, humiliation, specifically in a workplace setting. And the last job I had, I was humiliated in front of my coworkers, and it was traumatic, and I haven't brought myself to go back to work since then. So that's, and that is life ruining. I mean, to not be able to handle, I mean, I'm almost 28 years old, and I feel like I can't handle even an entry-level job, because it's not about the job, it's about the social aspect of the job. Any job, you know, it's terrifying for me. The second one is unwilling to get involved with people unless certain of being liked. So I've always been a serial monogamist. I've been in serious relationships, long-term relationships only, since I was 15 years old. And since school, I mean, really since like middle school, I've never had close friends. You know, I had friends in high school, and I had friends in college, but especially since then, I've had absolutely no friends, really. And you know, it's easier for me to get into these long-term relationships, because usually it's very intense, you know. I am certain that I am liked in the beginning of those relationships. There's no doubt. It's always two people infatuated with each other, you know. But friendships are different. They're different. Friendships with women specifically are different, because I was bullied a lot as a kid. That's a big part of what I think formed this personality disorder in myself. And I was bullied a lot and sort of manipulated by cliques of girls in school, and I guess I just you know, men are more straightforward usually with how they feel, whereas you know, whenever I try to make a friend with a woman, I'm constantly doubting what they actually think of me. I think they're, you know, they're just being nice to me to be polite, or, you know, they feel bad for me, but they probably really think that I'm weird or awkward or a loser. And so because of that, the one friend, I mean, I have two friends now. We'll say I have two friends. But really the only way that I am able to have friendships like that are because they are persistent in reminding me that they like me, and if they quit reaching out to me, I would probably not reach out to them, because I would assume that they just don't care and that they don't actually like me and that they're over it. So, you know, it's tough because I want those friendships, I want those relationships, but in order to protect myself, I really don't pursue them unless I'm 100% sure that they truly like me. Shows restraint within intimate relationships because of the fear of being shamed or ridiculed. Now, I don't want to talk about my relationship too much on the internet. It's because that goes beyond just my life. But I will speak in general terms about just my history in relationships, because it has been, there's a pattern there. So for me, I know a lot of people with avoidant personality disorder avoid romantic relationships in general for the same reason that, that I was just speaking about relationships or friendships, because it's easier to not put yourself out there. For me, who I also have some dependent personality disorder symptoms. I don't think I qualify for that disorder, but it's also a cluster C personality disorder. There's sometimes some overlap. Like I said, I've never been single. I've always been in a relationship because that is, like, for me, the safest interpersonal connection, right? I want to be in a relationship with someone who is obsessed with me, someone that I know actually likes me. Okay? But the pattern is that, I'm very open and natural and normal in a relationship in the beginning, in that infatuation period, when there is no doubt, when I feel 100% that they accept me and want me and love me, right? But then, as soon as that sort of honeymoon period is over and real life sets in, and you start to realize that you are not necessarily perfect people and that you might not be perfectly matched and perfectly compatible in every way, insecurity starts to creep in, and that's when I start to show restraint, and the relationships, they distance, they grow apart, and this is a pattern. This has happened more than once for me. Once I start to question, what they really think of me, I no longer feel comfortable being vulnerable with them. I no longer feel comfortable being myself, and that defeats the purpose. That breaks up the certainty of that bond, and makes it scary. That's the whole overarching theme of avoidant personality disorder is fear and anxiety. Cluster C personality disorders are the fearful and anxious cluster. That's avoidant personality, dependent personality, and obsessive compulsive personality disorders. So that's kind of how that's played out in my life. Again, that is life ruining when even the tiniest seed of doubt in somebody's, to not be able to overcome feeling imperfect in somebody's eyes. Like, of course, anyway, it's life ruining. It's ruined relationships, and it's very difficult to overcome. Is preoccupied with being criticized or rejected in social situations. So this is pretty obvious. Anybody who has like social anxiety or social phobias will understand this one completely. It's hard to enjoy yourself. It's always been difficult for me to enjoy myself without substances, especially in social settings, because I'm constantly thinking about every little thing I say, like, was that awkward? Did they think that was weird? I shouldn't have said that. They think I'm awkward. They think I look fat. I'm, you know, they're thinking about how fat and ugly I look. Like, how can you enjoy being with people when all you can think about is what you're perceiving they must be thinking about you? And also, if I say something that is a flop or that was awkward, or if somebody were to criticize me or something in a group setting, like, I would think about that for years. Like, that would be, it's a worst case scenario. Being humiliated in front of people is my worst case scenario, and it literally always has been. I mean, I can think of times in, like, first grade where this was, like, a fear of mine. This has always been a fear of mine. And, you know, and this one, that's one of the more, like, broad, vague symptoms. I think a lot of people, even people who wouldn't qualify with avoidant personality disorder, have these similar anxieties. It's just, it's so extreme and it's so pervasive for me and others with this personality disorder. Is inhibited in new interpersonal situations because of feelings of inadequacy. Again, this is like every single time I make a new friend, I will constantly be thinking, like, they think less of me. I think especially as I've gotten older, and I haven't necessarily followed, like, the life path that I sort of was expecting to, in terms of, like, having a career, having a husband, having children, getting ready for that, at least at this point in my life. When I meet other women who I feel are more successful than me in terms of, like, either they have a really good job or they have kids, I will avoid, even if they're nice and even if they sort of express interest in being my friend, it's hard for me to not feel like they think less of me, that they think that I am somehow inferior because I'm not where they're at in those terms. You know, because of that, I've really struggled just with getting older in general, feeling like I'm not measuring up to where I should be in my life at this point, and because I have such horrible self-esteem, you know, that's an issue. I constantly feel inadequate compared to others. Let's see. There's two more. Views self as socially inept, personally unappealing, or inferior to others. So again, very similar. This one I think is really interesting, and when I read it for the first time, it sort of blew my mind, because for the last couple years, I had been genuinely considering the fact that I could be autistic, because I felt like there had to be an explanation for why I felt so awkward and so inept with making friends. Like, why is it so difficult for me? There must be something wrong. And I thought autism was, like, a pretty decent explanation. Like, I was genuinely considering that. But people that I would mention that to, that knew me well, like my partner and my family, said that they didn't see me that way, that they didn't think of me as being socially awkward. And that's really common in avoidant personality disorder, is perceiving yourself as a lot less socially competent than you really are. So it's a perception thing, So that one was crazy for me. And then finally, is unusually reluctant to take personal risks or to engage in any new activities because they may prove embarrassing. And again, this is one of the ones that I can literally trace back to childhood. I love the idea of learning new things, but I want to do it completely by myself. So, for example, when I was younger, maybe around 10, my dad wanted to teach me to ride a dirt bike. But I was so afraid of embarrassing myself in front of my own family. I was so afraid at being bad of it, at not getting it right away, and humiliating myself, that I refused to learn. And now, like, man, I'm so sad that I didn't take that opportunity, because how cool would that be to know how to do that? But that's been, I mean, at every single point in my life, there have been opportunities that I have not taken for fear of humiliation. That's been the theme of my life, genuinely. And that sucks. Like when you think about this as a whole, being afraid of putting yourself out there, being afraid of criticism, being afraid of embarrassment, being afraid of, you know, what others might think of you. That's why it's called avoidant personality disorder. You avoid everything. You avoid people. You avoid those opportunities. You avoid any situation that you might be at risk of any of those things happening, which is basically everything in life. And that's why I got to the point where I was just so isolated and so lonely. And, you know, the difference between avoidant and some of the other personality disorders where people are withdrawn, like schizotypal, is that we want those connections. It's not that we don't want friends and we don't want relationships and we don't want you know, to be productive, to work, like, it's not that we don't want that. We want that for ourselves, but we are so afraid of the potential for humiliation, and we're very, very, very sensitive to that. So learning that about myself, I guess none of those things individually were things that I didn't already know I struggled with, but just understanding that that is a personality disorder, that you know, it's not just me being overly sensitive or, you know, social phobia or this or that. It's a personality disorder that can actually be traced back to experiences that happened to me when I was younger. Again, I think that the bullying I experienced was a huge part of this, combined with the fact that I was already shy. You know, it's a starting point, at least, to better understand why I am the way that I am. And so, one other thing that I wanted to touch on in this video before I finally end it, because it's getting really long, is the difference between avoidant personality disorder and social anxiety, because a lot of people are diagnosed with social anxiety when really they probably would have avoidant personality disorder, because that's what happened to me. And the biggest difference is the pervasiveness of it. So across all areas of your life. Somebody with social anxiety usually has it more situationally, right? So they might have close friends and family, you know, that they feel totally comfortable around. And but maybe they just get anxiety when they're going to be meeting a lot of new people, or if they're going to be, you know, presenting on stage or something like that. If you have avoidant personality disorder, it's truly, if you're not 100% sure that somebody likes you, then it's scary. I don't have a close relationship with even my brother anymore, and it's not to put him on blast, it's just we just drifted apart, and he's made comments in the past that, you know, were meant to be lighthearted, but I was affected by them, and I tend to feel those feelings of like him perceiving me to be inferior. And so although we get along great, we're just not that close. I mean, it's everything in my life, every job, everything. And that's what makes it so life-ruining and so debilitating. And that's why I want people to know that this exists and to understand how crippling it can be. And just, I don't know, if you have a friend that is, you know, dodging you and canceling plans, just know that it might not be you, it's probably them. And maybe they hate themselves so much that they assume that every single other person must feel the same way about them, because that's really the root of this disorder. So with that, I'm gonna end this video. I do plan on filming more in the near future, when I have things that I think might be valuable to share. So I hope that this helped somebody. Leave comments if it did, please, and I'll see you in the next one.